you doing?
David Moore, Dallas Morning News. These first two games, CeeDee Lamb has 15 receptions on 17 targets. Just talk about the level he's playing, and if you talk a little bit about his ability to go from one spot to the other at receiver and how he's working that at the moment.
Yeah, here's a guy that if you're not around him, you don't understand the fire that burns inside him, how good he wants to be, how talented he is, how he works at it. There's a football instincts to CeeDee that is just special. I mean, like, the game makes sense to him. And, we've wanted to move him around. This is a matchup-driven league. He's obviously one of our best players. But to do it and have the success that he's been having just, again, helps us sell to the other guys, the ability to move guys around. I think yesterday we got some young guys pressed into duty, and so CeeDee took even more of a role of, okay, we're going to put you in this spot for there. Like, those are things that happen sometimes late, even over the weekend, where you're like, hey, I'm good, I'm fine with that. So, but it also speaks to his relationship and trust with Dak. I think of the seam ball, right, that he hits where the safety comes out of the middle field and kind of takes his legs out. But, like, there's a trust. Dak felt, I was a little bit late trying to move the safety, but he trusts him to make that play, and what's he do? He goes and pulls it down. So playing at a real high level, we're going to continue to move him around just because of the type of FBI he has. And, again, those numbers are really – I haven't been around a guy that's put up those kind of numbers in a long time.
Clarence Hill for What's on Telegram. Dak's efficiency yesterday, 7 incompletions. Just can talk about getting the ball out quick. Is that the DNA of this offense?
Well, it's the DNA against that opponent. We really knew that was a really good defense. I mean, that's a really good defense, and they went out, they got themselves better by getting Al Woods and the depth and the stuff they had up front. But the objective going to that game was we wanted to throw over 28 completions. We just kind of knew it would be that kind of game where we're going to spread it around a little bit. And to start the way that he did, and to take the ball in the opening drive, and to see him, start the way he did, it kind of unfolded. Not every game plan unfolds like that, where you're like, okay, this is the plan. Sometimes you come over after a couple drives, you're like, okay, that's not working. What are we going to go to now? But that was definitely the plan. A ton of respect for, Robert and Jeff Ulbrich and that defensive staff and what they do. And, it just was one of those days where he was seeing it really well. And, if you watch Dak, I know he's feeling really good when his back foot's firm and he's hitting his back foot and the ball's coming out of his hand. And there's 4 or 5 clips on there early in the game where he's doing that.
When did y'all start working on that script for the Jets?
It goes throughout the week. When you're putting in a play on Tuesday night or Wednesday, you're like, hey, that's probably one that fits in the first 15. But really, it starts Thursday afternoon. There's a lot of communication between the staff, a lot of communication with Mike and Dak, and it kind of gets ready to roll on Friday. We like to get a little bit earlier so the players see it, they know it. Actually, Dak spoke to this a couple weeks ago. He said, his first game, I guess. So he said that it's weird when you step into the huddle and the other players almost can anticipate based on the personnel grouping what play you're going with. And that speaks to the repetitiveness and how much we practice those openers from Friday morning till game time. And so when we play so many primetime games and late afternoon games, there's always that little extra walkthrough where you can hit a few more nuggets that you want to kind of get knock the dust off.
Thank you.
Todd Archer with ESPN. I assume every scheme, the quarterback's footwork is tied to routes by the receivers. There's been a lot of talk about that with you guys. What's different, or what's more involved in your scheme than others?
I think it's a philosophy. We've talked a little bit about this. There's a lot of ways to attack a defense. There's drop back passes. There's 7-step drops. There's 5-step drops. There's all these different ways you can attack it. But we are a timing and rhythm drop back passing team. And what that means is our breaking points for the receivers are taught to where they know progressions. I've been in some systems, and I've had my own system where we didn't want the receivers to know the progressions. Because there's like, hey, Coach, I'm really clear on this. Like, you telling me I'm a clear out? Like, really, I'm just running for the love of the game. But that's not the way we believe in it here. We're going to tell them, you got to take the corner out of there so we can throw the ball back in behind you. But everything, they understand the progressions. And so if they're a 2 or a 3 in the progression, they know that they can get their depth. The number one mistake that most young players do at the skill positions is they're short. Their time clock goes off and they're a little bit short. Let's say it's a 16 or 18-yard in cut, right? And they're only at 13 or 14. Well, from a quarterback standpoint, they think the receiver thinks they're open, but they're not because there's a movement piece underneath them. So it started day one when the players came back. And it's like, hey, you guys need to understand the timing of the QB's footwork because you're going to understand the progression and how it relates to your depth, your landmark, all those things. We just played a really good defense that's all what we call vision-based defense, which means that when they're dropping in their zones, all eyes are on the quarterback. And so those windows aren't open for very long. So if the time clock is off, either by the quarterback not being firm on his back foot or the receiver being short or getting rerouted a little bit too far inside of his landmark, it affects the efficiency of the passing game. And I think we've kind of explained and sold to our guys, and they believe that when our time clocks are right, both with the receivers' route detail and the quarterback's footwork, we're pretty difficult to defend.
Dak was saying it's almost like he feels like he's dancing back there. Like it's 1, 2, 3, you know.
Yeah, and then the thing that Dak's probably speaking to is you teach the quarterbacks to listen to their feet. You know, so again, if I'm throwing a front side progression, I can give it one hitch. And if it's not open on one hitch, then I need to take myself to 2 and to 3 and beyond. And so it is a little bit like dance steps. And really, if you watch our quarterbacks in pre-practice as they're working their progressions on air with Scott, there is almost like a synchronized swimming to where when they're working from one progression to the other, you'll see their feet kind of moving in unison. And it's really a beautiful thing that goes back 40 years to Coach Walsh and working on a line with drops and timings and time clocks. So it really is a cool orchestration to watch those guys work.
Hey, Brian, Saad Yusuf from The Athletic. Building on the Dak conversation, on third down, his efficiency on third down in particular, is that something that, you know, just because of the plays that are being called, is it the high pressure situation that he thrives in that scenario? Just why was he able to be so good on third down?
Yeah, again, it was a good plan. We rep it a ton. Again, it goes in early for us. You know, the third down stuff starts to go in on Wednesday for us, which other people believe it should go in a little bit later, but we know it's going to be a big part of doing what? Controlling the clock and all that. So I think it's the prep that goes into it, not just the staff, but the players as well. And again, he is the type of guy that wants the ball in those situations. He wants to find the tight windows. He wants to be on time. One of the coolest ones I can think of is we kind of came out with a little bit of tempo. We got in a 4x1 set, and they actually matched it really well. We tried to sneak Tony into the flat real fast. And if you watch that clip, it's a great one for you guys to pull up. Watch how decisive he is with his feet. Tony's his first progression. I mean, that back foot hits, and the ball is thrown right 1 foot in front of Tony's front number. And Quincy Williams, who's really fast and can run, is chasing from inside out. But it's because of that execution of Tony, Dak, the decisiveness of Dak, that we're able to throw the ball short of the sticks and get TP out in space for, I don't know, it was an 8-10-yard gain. But that decision-making of Dak and that comfort of those situations is because of prep, timing, throwing routes to those guys. And, again, like I said, he saw the field really well yesterday.
On one particular third down, the third and goal to Tolbert that drew the pass interference. Just you talked last week about him having the trust with Hendershot, and you said that was a huge thing for him. For him, with Tolbert to slide in with Cooks out, just, you know, the trust that he had to go to Tolbert multiple times on that drive and even in the end zone on third and goal.
Yeah, well, number one, not surprised by the way JT played. You guys have seen it. You guys have talked about it. He's worked his ass off to get to this point and had some real big third down conversions. We got him matched up on a little stick route or a little deeper stick route to our left at one point. But if you go back and look at that clip, the read was based off of we had vertical seam route running. The safety actually went the other direction, and he never hesitated and went back over there. But he's thrown those balls to JT. You guys remember we talk about it here quite a bit, but like the matrix catch in the back baseline, like he's made those throws and catch. So the cool thing we believe is that, again, the first open progression should get the ball in the system. You know, the ball doesn't get forced to CeeDee. CeeDee is just really good. He gets open a lot. But the ball doesn't just get forced to CeeDee. Whoever is open based on our progressions, the way we build it with our personnel groupings, our formations, and then, of course, the defense has a hand in it, that's where the ball should go. And when we're at our best, it's when we're popping open 1 and 2 because of the trust and the timing of those guys.
John Machota, The Athletic. Mike talked before the game about how much he liked Thursday's practice. He said it might have been your guys' best since training camp out in Oxnard. What has it been like for your guys to go against this defense And then kind of the second part of that is just, can you tell how a team's going to play on Sunday from just the way that they practice during the week, or can there be bad practice and teams still play well?
Yeah, again, it was number one. It was a great practice. It really was. The way you kind of know it's a good practice is when the ball doesn't hit the ground that often. Like when you're going through your script and you're in team and you're in 7-on-7 and you're 2 minutes and the ball's not hitting the ground. That's how you kind of know and you feel like, hey, this is a pretty good practice. You can bounce back from a bad practice. That does happen, making corrections. So, but it was really a good practice. So I think we all went into the game feeling very confident that we would play well against a really good defense. And in terms of going against our defense, I mean, we honestly love it because we know that we're going against one of the top defenses in the league. And the cool thing is it truly is a great matchup because we know their calls. There's verbal calls, right? We hear all the verbal calls. We know their calls, their adjustments. They know ours. So it's almost like we can anticipate what they're doing or know what they're doing. And so it comes down to the one-on-one matchup, whether it's pass protection, blitz pickup, CeeDee versus Trayvon or Gilly, Tyron versus Micah. So it really brings to light the fundamentals of the beauty of what these guys do and the pass protection, the route run, all that stuff, because we know each other so well that it's almost the saying iron sharpens iron, but it really is that because the speed and pace that the defense brings from a pass rush standpoint, the movement that they do, is extremely disruptive. And so we were watching Micah. It was one of the first plays of the game. They tried to throw a screen on him against the Giants, and Dak and I both looked at each other. We said, damn, we're glad he's on our team. I mean, he's just like, thank goodness we get to go against him only in practice because he's just a different type of athlete.
Yes.
Justin Morris, Pro Football Network coach. During the offseason, CeeDee talked about his emphasis on learning Dak's nonverbal cues and how they can make that connection. What have you seen from that with CeeDee and Dak throughout the course of the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I would probably say the week leading up to the Giants is the number one thing just because of all the exotic blitzes and the things that they had. There was a bunch of nonverbal hot adjustments or route breakoffs that you saw in practice. But what I love about them, if you guys would get a chance, like you get a chance to watch these guys, when the defense is up and we're kind of over there making corrections and talking, there's always dialogue. And I've always thought that this is something that veteran receivers maybe understand or veteran tight ends understand. If you go over and talk to the QBs and they understand that they're on the same page with you, guess what? More than likely in crunch time, the ball's going to come your way. And so having a relationship and having communication and, hey, what'd you see there? And it's really kind of cool because it's give and take. Sometimes the QB's like, yeah, you're right, I see it that way. And other times it's now, hey, I want you to do this. But there's constant dialogue with CeeDee and Dak. And that's great for a Jalen Brooks to see, JT to see, even the young backs, young tight ends, to see that, again, to stay in your shell and say, hey, I saw it this way and I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but to go and have a conversation about it, that's what we want these guys doing. That's how we get better and we solve problems on the practice field that don't show up on game day.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. That game yesterday from Pollard, is that, when you have the lead and everything's comfortable, is that what you want out of him, the touches and those kinds of things?
Well, we knew it was going to be a real physical game. Didn't expect we'd have 80-something plus plays, obviously. I think it shows what Tony can be for sure. We always want to be mindful of all our guys' reps and touches and things like that. But I think it proves that here's a guy that we've all asked, can he be a bell cow? There's no question he can be a bell cow. He ran hard, 32, whatever the number was. Do we want to do that every week? Depends on the game. We'll be smart with him this week in practice. But again, I think he answered the question, can I do that? Yeah, I can. But some of the cool things about Tony, again, I like to just brag about the things that don't. If you watch him in pass protection, there's a chip where he actually caught the ball. We checked it down to him, but he leaks out over the right side. And 72, I think, was running upfield on Terrence. And the chip that he had was wicked. Like, it was really cool. So he's playing physical away from the ball as well, which, again, just speaks to the type of competitor he is and, the mindset and the competitive play style that he has.
Jacob Denton with the ticket. What are you seeing from Michael Gallup on film? He's logged a ton of snaps, obviously, the first two games, but he's only got targeted twice each of the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, MG's doing a really good job. I mean, we've hit him on a couple slants. Really, he made a great play in the first game on a slant. They've buzzed up underneath him yesterday we tried to throw a little in cut to him. Again, sometimes the ball doesn't find these guys, but the thing that Michael's been doing a really good job of is he's been, again, doing a great job in the running game. He's running his routes full speed. And again, it goes ebbs and flows. Just because CeeDee has, 15 touches, again, we don't think that, when you get 4, 5, 6 games down the line from now that those numbers will be the same. And the ball doesn't lie, the read doesn't lie. And again, how I feel about MG. I think he's a terrific receiver that will help us win a lot of games.
Well, Michael will finish up with Patrick. Michael Gallup in Dallas Morning News. In your experience, you've been able to give both your two rookie offensive lineman backups reps these first 2 weeks. What sort of dividends does that pay over the course of the year?
Well, it's invaluable, especially with the way we practice now. During training camp, you really don't get enough reps. You don't get enough padded practices. You look at TJ going in yesterday when Chuma came out, and again, that was a tough matchup with Williams. And we've been talking about him really for the past couple weeks. Here's a guy that, again, it's definitely not too big for him. He goes in there, he competes, he's strong as hell. He works really good, with Tyron, which is awesome. But we were talking when the game got to where it got to, it was like almost getting extra inside run drill work late in the game. So Awesome came in and he, got a chance to work. But you don't get those practices. So, we won some battles. They won some battles in the 4-minute drive. But it's been invaluable. But, you see Deuce Vaughn getting snaps. You see Jalen Tolbert getting snaps. You see Jalen Brooks getting snaps. You see Luke Schoonmaker. I mean, you see all these young players that are coming on that you're just like, that's invaluable for us because we're going to need them. I mean, we're going to need them at some point to help us go win big games. And we have zero question that they'll be able to do that because of the snaps that they're getting, sometimes by choice, other times because they're forced into action.
Hey, Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Last week, the young tight end struggled catching the ball. Weather played a part in that. This week, Schoonmaker gets his first NFL touchdown. Ferguson, jumps it off. How important is it for those young guys' confidence in that room to continue to do that, as well as the importance of it being difficult for opposing defenses to have to cue in on them as well as Cooks and Lamb and
Yeah. We talked about last week. You might ask a question. Somebody did, like, all the comps in the world and those guys. The Giants game was a tough environment. The weather was rough, but we knew they'd bounce back. This is a young, resilient group. The one thing that I will say we kind of got on L-Dub about was the tight end celebrations have really gone down this year. I mean, last year they're jumping in Salvation Army things. I mean, they're doing the rope, the cattle thing. But it's a really talented room. It's a really talented room, and again, the youth movement of those guys and the confidence that they're playing with and the confidence that we as a staff and the other veteran players see is real. It's tangible. The vets will talk about it. We'll talk about it because we know the work that they put in. Everything we do here is based on preparation and work ethic, and those guys practice as hard as anybody. And again, last week it was the run game. They were unbelievable in the run game against the Giants. This week they bounced back in the passing game. That's his game. The game is ebb and flow. Back to MG. I mean, MG's going to get his touches, Deuce, we're going to need Deuce at some point, The lineman, you're going to roll through him. So you wish you could predict the script each week. And we had a good plan this week. And, again, the players, to their credit, they went out and executed. But each week is a little bit different. You got to be ready for the ebb and flow. But our guys are playing at most positions right now with a real high confidence, and that's because of the way they practice and work and the love that they have for one another.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.